Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another update. So the big news to really share today is that as of just a couple of days ago, we have officially received brand new details about the recent jobs report, where it recently was reported that about 194,000 jobs were recently added. Now, you might have already maybe seen another video that talks about the jobs report, but what I really want to do is that in today's video is that I pretty much just want to share the new information that we found about the jobs report, but maybe dive into even greater detail talking about what this actually specifically means. Because the story right now is that, as just mentioned, now that we have 194,000 jobs that were recently added, it is basically well known by basically every single person that, objectively speaking, whether you are a news station, just a casual viewer, or the idea is that we really fell below expectations, and it really just shows us is that there is a lot of work that has to be done. So in today's update is I really just want to dive into much greater detail talking about the jobs report, how this is going to basically impact a lot of stuff related to stimulus and unemployment, and what that basically means for all of us. So as always, we're going to get right to it, but as always, real fast, before we begin, the same exact drill: consider smashing the like button because it's always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just really anything. Always great to say hi to new and familiar faces. If you are watching this on release date, hopefully everyone had a great Columbus Day weekend. And with that being said, let's get started. So with the new information that we just got from the September 2021 jobs report, which, keep in mind, happens to be the month where we sadly had unemployment officially end federally for the entire country, it was recently released that ever since they ended up ending the unemployment program, we have now officially received data that about 194,000 jobs were recently added last month. Now, maybe for some perspective is that the month before that, 366,000 jobs were added, which basically shows us is that we are essentially going down. And maybe to compare it even more in terms of just general perspective is that they were originally expecting that our country would essentially add 500,000 brand new jobs into the market. So 194,000 is obviously very, very different than the 500,000 jobs that they originally anticipated, which basically shows us is that we are actually taking a relative step backwards in terms of trying to help with the unemployment situation. It was essentially found that they are currently now down, sadly, 5 million jobs compared to the pre-pandemic, which essentially just means is that of all the jobs that existed, if you were someone that maybe was employed before the entire pandemic happens, is it essentially means that they are now trying to create some of the jobs that no longer exist because of so many of the companies and businesses that have closed. But even compared to back then, they are now still down about 5 million jobs. So in other words, there are 5 million people / jobs that just physically cannot be employed by default off of the logic that because they just don't even exist anymore compared to the pre-pandemic, and which basically creates a total where I believe that the current unemployment rate that we currently stand is right now about 4.8%. So this might seem like, well, for some people, maybe this will seem like a small number. For some people, maybe it'll seem like a big number. But for perspective is that when you live in a country that has basically over 100 million people, even 1% is 1 million people. So this represents still, let's just say, a community of just millions and millions of people that are still sadly very, very much out of work. And likely most of us are basically here together in some way. Now, they did find, interestingly, maybe a random statistic is that of all of the industries, interestingly, travel, leisure, and hospitality actually saw the greatest rise or increase in terms of jobs being created, which probably does make sense in a lot of ways, is because these happen to be the industries that were probably the most impacted. So they were the industries where we saw the most number of job losses, and thankfully, now that we are seeing things reopen again, we are seeing the most job gains come back into this industry. But I believe even then, it was recently reported that about 74,000 jobs were added within this industry. However, before this recent jobs report came out, I believe is that they had originally predicted or believed or had averaged every single month having right around 180,000 jobs start to come out. So the bottom line is that all of the expectations that they originally made, whether it came to just the jobs report in general or it just came to the jobs report for very specific industries, which in this case happens to be travel, leisure, entertainment, and I also feel it right there because outside of this, I also, some of you guys already know, but just in cases, is I also interestingly happen to work in the film/events showbiz industry. So you can imagine what happened to pretty much every single person when the pandemic happened. Now, thankfully, things are starting to reopen again. I've also casually started to kind of go back, take on a lot of other side projects outside of this. But the bottom line is that we are still not at the full level. We are still basically, if anything, we are still basically in a situation where there are expectations that they're trying to make, and sadly, we are still very, very much below that, and actually quite significantly. So that really is just the situation that's going on right now. Now, in terms of what all of this data basically means in terms of how it's going to potentially impact things like stimulus and unemployment, the big thing to note is that there is definitely a lot of people, a lot of politicians, and a lot of news articles out there that is believing that because we now recently received data to show that the numbers obviously aren't like meeting where they want to be met, then it shows that there's definitely, nonetheless, I think it's very, very fair to say, is that doing more stimulus checks, doing more unemployment could definitely be very beneficial. There are people that are saying, and it's actually objectively based off of data, because these are numbers, so these are not things that people can kind of debate over. But what people can debate over is that based off of these numbers, it is now believed by a lot of people that there really should be a need for unemployment or a need for more stimulus checks, more programs, because if they can potentially just do more of these programs, then I think that this is what could potentially add to the finishing touches to really try to bring back the country as an entire whole. But the biggest thing to really know that's happening is that right now at this time, as most of you guys know, is sadly the current fourth stimulus package does not have an unemployment extension currently as a part of that package. There are standalone bills that they're trying to add inside, but the current package doesn't have it. However, one thing that is actually interestingly going on is that because right now at this time, because they are still negotiating the stimulus package, and also because of the fact that it's very, very fair to say is that there are a lot of politicians that are not satisfied with the current package. It is believed by a lot of people is that this recent package that they're currently having on the table is probably going to be modified. Based off of what's happening now is that it looks like it's going to probably be a little bit difficult to try to include unemployment inside of the fourth stimulus package. However, I don't believe it's unreasonable to think that they may potentially be trying to do some kind of unemployment program as a standalone. Right now at this current time, most of Congress is actually interestingly on vacation because of Columbus Day. It's just that apparently when you happen to work in the world of Congress, a lot of times most people get one day off on Columbus Day, but in Congress you happen to be able to get an entire week off because of that reason. So the story right now is that right now Congress is currently on a recess break, so they're not really doing as much now per se. However, the House is expected to come back a little bit earlier in order to try to work on some stuff. But regardless about whether or not they do come back now or next week, the big thing is that when they actually do physically come back, they will definitely be trying to do a lot of negotiations. We don't know at this time if they're going to try to insert unemployment. There are definitely bills and politicians that are still very much to this day trying to push for it. And I think it's very, very fair to say is that after the recent jobs report, I think the really bottom line overall to really take in is just the fact that obviously based off of this, objectively speaking, these are numbers. These are not like favorite colors or something that you can, subjectively kind of debate over. Maybe you can debate about the approach that you take to handle the situation. But it's very, very fair to say is that based off of the numbers, there are definitely a lot of people that could really benefit and be used, or certainly be able to really have a strong need to do more unemployment benefits and extensions and all that kind of stuff. So the big idea is that we don't really know what's going to happen from here. We do have a little bit of a gist of a timeline for when we will probably find more information, but it's very, very clear to say is that based off of these numbers, I think that hopefully most of us can agree is that there is definitely a level of need to it, or there are certainly many, if not specifically millions and millions of people that could really be able to benefit from this. But of course, at the end of the day, as always, we really just have to kind of see what happens based off of how all of the debates that are going on right now unfolds. So with that being said, that's really what I really just wanted to share in today's update, because I know many people were kind of wanting me to cover that. So if you guys found that insightful, maybe consider smashing a like button. If you guys haven't done so, consider subscribing or hitting the bell for similar videos and other finance topics. Of course, you guys can decide. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just really anything. Maybe any personal stories about the unemployment situation, really about anything. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.